chicken jockey.
Great, now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about video game movies. The Minecraft movie is fast approaching $1 billion at the box office as of writing this, and it's gone viral both unironically and ironically, to the point where audiences of teenagers are throwing popcorn, screaming along, and in some cases even getting escorted from theaters from getting too wild. And for a film based on a game with no real story, that's not just impressive, but may change the way the film industry handles video game adaptations going forwards. We've all seen the major shift in the film industry towards video game adaptations, but beyond that, let's talk about how and why this is happening, and why the Minecraft movie may mark a watershed moment for better or for worse. Video game adaptations are not a new phenomenon. In fact, the entertainment industry was fairly quick to adapt many of these games to television. It's been over 40 years since the premiere of the Pac-Man TV show in 1982 and Saturday Super Kid the following year. These adaptations were, though, for the most part cartoons, and that trend continued up until the early 90s with the release of the Super Mario movie. No, not that one. This one. This represents the first of mainstream Hollywood live-action video game adaptations for the big screen. This was then quickly followed by the live-action Street Fighter, Double Dragon, and some others. The problem with this era, and the Uwe Boll era that followed in the 2000s, is that they kinda sucked. Uwe Boll was an absolute adaptation terrorist with some of the lowest Rotten Tomato scores you can find on the site. But to be fair, the other adaptations from this decade weren't much better. Some of the 90s ones are fun in a campy way, but really some of these are just straight up bad, and that's not just a personal opinion. Virtually every one of these movies was not received well by critics or audiences, and even worse from the studio perspective at least, is more than half of them lost money. Even the success stories like Tomb Raider or Resident Evil were financial plays, not critical ones. They made money, sure, but you didn't hear anyone putting Tomb Raider on their favorite film of the year list. This trend continues into the 2010s, where every year some studio would release an adaptation of some video game, and it would inevitably not perform well critically, if not also commercially. So why were these movies bad? Why did they underperform? What changed? And why is Hollywood going all in now? I've heard hand-wavy explanations that the difference is because 1. The video audience is now grown substantially over time, and relatedly 2. The creators of these films are now players. Now I think both of these are true to some degree, but we can go deeper into what that actually means and what's actually changed. Let's start with what made so many of these early adaptations bad. Frankly, these films were generally uninspired IP grabs or otherwise entirely missed the mark on what made the game good. Hitman became a generic action thriller, bald guy, lots of guns, but it didn't feel like the Hitman games. Max Payne turned a gritty noir bullet time game into another PG-13 action thriller, where V seems more like a pre-workout or 5-hour energy than a hallucinogenic superdrug. Believe me, I'm not gonna sit here and try to say that the new Super Mario movie was made out of the goodness of the studio's hearts to tell the important story of Mario. We all know the executives have dollar signs in their eyes and visions of toys from the movie flying off the shelves. But let's compare the two versions and you'll see more what I mean. The 1993 Super Mario Bros. Is essentially a dark sci-fi satire closer to a campy Blade Runner than Super Mario. The result is a dystopian Dino Hatton with zero visual connection to the game. Bowser was this weird human lizard guy, and Goombas looked like trenchcoat wearing lizards with tiny heads. And I actually love this movie for how weird it is, but even I can admit that it totally missed the game's tone entirely. On the other hand, the 2023 Super Mario embraced the bright nostalgic tone and used recognizable visuals, music, and humor. Even if the story was a bit thin, it did feel like a playable Mario world. This is all to say that modern adaptations are more fan-first, or at least take the fans into account, while older ones were typically brand-first or more up to the whims of whichever director picked it up in their individual vision. For example, I can't imagine a situation like the Sonic film where fan backlash to a design sent it back into development, but even though it cost Paramount around $5 million to redesign, it resulted in an incredibly well-received film that kicked off a hugely successful movie franchise. But there's been some external changes as well. We've reached full saturation in the superhero and Disney remake market, indicated by plummeting viewership and reception, and even with the recent Thunderbolt success, a large segment of moviegoers are sick of superhero films. Hollywood is hungry for the next big thing in franchise filmmaking, and in the gap left by these two other struggling genres, video games provides a vast library of worlds and characters, essentially a treasure trove of IP waiting to be mined, similar to the way comic books were pre-MCU. Essentially, the industry's reliance on IP isn't going anywhere, but they're starting to look in new places to find it. Okay, so we've established that video game adaptations are better now and are in an environment that is more willing to receive them. But what about the Minecraft movie? We've already seen huge successes with adaptations like Super Mario. What makes this one different? Well, first, replicating the huge success we saw with the Super Mario movie is huge. It kind of proves that it's not a flash in the pan, one-off, catching lightning in a bottle situation. Additionally, if we remember and are being honest, from the initial announcement to the trailer to right up to the release, the Minecraft movie was memed to death as a half-baked IP grab relying on the star power of the lead actors to sell tickets, similar to the criticisms of the Mario movie. Then, Mario grossed $1.2 billion, and Minecraft, as of this video's posting, is already at $910 million, double the second highest grossing American movie of 2025 so far. In one weekend, it opened 163 million domestically and 313 million worldwide. That's the biggest 3-day total for a video game movie ever, and Warner Brothers' third biggest opening of all time. Further proving the point that critical reception is now completely deviated from mass market and commercial reception. And to be honest, it's even deviated from the initial consumer reception. With this, we're seeing a shift from, is the story adaptable, to how do we capture the feeling and make it a fun experience. For example, Mario also made an insane amount of money, but it comes with decades of established characters, a relatively consistent, if not simple, core narrative about rescuing the princess from the big bad guy, iconic worlds, clear hero's journey structure, yada yada yada. It's a beloved franchise with a built-in story framework, however loose and thin it is at times. Adapting it, while challenging to get right, does follow a more traditional path of character-driven storytelling. Minecraft, on the other hand, is a sandbox. Its entire premise is the lack of predefined narrative. Players create their own stories, their own worlds, and their own goals. This makes it an inherently much riskier proposition for a narrative film adaptation. How do you make a movie out of a game that is, by its very nature, plotless? To a large degree, the success of Mario can be attributed to finally getting the story and characters right after the 1993 attempt, while Minecraft's success suggests something more. It's about successfully translating the feeling, the iconography of a beloved universe, connecting with the fans, even if a traditional story has to be largely invented for the film. Minecraft told the industry something new, that the well of adaptable IP isn't just deep, it's wider than ever imagined. It's not just about the games with obvious movie potential anymore, it's not even about telling a great story, to be honest, or at least that's no longer required. If audiences will flock to a Minecraft movie in these numbers, a film that had to invent its story from the ground up and relied on a mix of virality and vibes in place of good acting and storytelling, it signals that the feeling and the cultural footprint of a game can be just as bankable as a well-executed story. After all, these are kids' movies. Good storytelling is definitely well received and can lead to critical acclaim, but is it necessary for a box office success? Or is it enough to have a fan-first focus with viral moments, recognizable scenes, and an exploration of the IP it's set in? I wouldn't call the Minecraft movie an exercise in good storytelling or acting, but its emphasis on fun and fans has led it to be a huge success. So now, with more and more video games being optioned and announced as films, it's clear we have entered the video game movie era. But have we also entered an era of relatability and virality over story? On one hand, we could see more novel ideas using video game IP on the big screen. On the other hand, studios may chase feelings over coherent narratives and pander to fans, resulting in hollow adaptations, which will lead to the same fatigue we've experienced with superhero movies. Which I think would be a shame, considering video games in general seem to have a higher standard of writing and storytelling than they did in the past. Which I think is somewhat evidenced by the success of the newest wave of TV adaptations like Last of Us and Fallout, which have both received a decent amount of critical acclaim. Certainly more so than the Minecraft movie, but they also almost certainly made a lot less money. And that's okay. Maybe some games are just pure unadulterated fun. Trying to shoehorn a deep, meaningful plot into them is missing the point and needlessly overcomplicating things. But the danger is when this becomes the dominant model. Making blockbusters is a copycat industry, and when the financial successes of a vibe-based adaptation overshadows the critical successes of story-based ones to such an extent, studios will stop taking chances on the latter. Why bother with expensive writers and complex character arcs if you can just license a popular sandbox game, hire some charming actors to look confused or excited, fill it with Easter eggs, and watch the money roll in? Obviously, Minecraft's success is due to more than just that, as I talked about earlier, but I can already imagine the pitch meetings with executives looking to jump on the wave and make a quick buck. The music industry has been struggling with a similar issue with the TikTok hit versus album artist argument for years now. Will the film industry continue to follow the same road of social media viability being the key to get something made? Anyways, I guess we'll just have to sit back and see how this plays out. Leave a comment and let me know where you think this is headed. Subscribe if you like the video, and thanks for watching.